Today we're talking Enduro Kart Race Prep. Welcome back to the Power Republic YouTube channel. Today's video we're talking about kart race prep for the up and coming Enduro Kart race at the Mackay Kart Club on July the 27th, 2019. Now the guys reached out to us just to brush over a couple of things that they learned of last year's race that they wanted to share with everybody, generate the interest, get everybody's karts top shelf so that they can all race for victory in the up and coming race in July. So today we're just going to step you through a few of those things, so let's get to it. Shout out to João Damas and Nicholas Pauscha. Sorry for those pronunciations, they're not perfect, but they are new Patreon subscribers here at Power Republic. So thank you very much for getting on board and showing us some support. So one of the first things the guys mentioned was your seat bolts. Now they do wear out with use, okay, so you can only tighten the nylocks up so many times before they are going to come loose. Now the enduro racing is over several hours and you want to make sure nothing comes loose because it's going to cost you time if you've got to get towed back to the pits or you stopped out on the track, have a DNF, blow some stuff up. They're all things that we don't want. We want to be able to challenge for the race victory, and to do that you've got to finish the race. So when we're talking seat hardware, we've got the countersunk washers here, a new M8 bolt, and this is the M8 nylock flare nut. These are what I use for mounting the seats, and if you've run out of these, you can reorder them online. You can get them in packs of 100, otherwise you can buy them individually. And seat hardware kit like this with the bolt, the washer and the nut, it's about $5. Everybody's favourite, race tape, zip ties. Every racing machine in the world is held together by these things. All jokes aside, it's excellent for a little bit of safety precautions on some of your nuts and bolts and parts on your kart, i.e. your rear crash bar. If it comes out, you're going to get a black flag and you're going to have to spend some time in the pits to fix it up. So to avoid those penalties, we recommend using a bit of race tape on the bolts after you've tightened them right up. That will stop with the vibrations making them come loose. And also too, you can use some zip ties in a daisy chain and loop around your bearing hangers to your rear bar, and that will stop it from coming off if the rear bar bolt is to break or something like that in an accident on the track. The next thing you want to do is replace your throttle cable. These are about 10 bucks. And it's pretty cheap insurance because you can't finish if your engine's not running, and if you snap a throttle cable halfway through the race, you're going to be pretty angry at yourself that you didn't replace it beforehand. Now, after you replace your throttle cable, it's advised that you go out for a couple of sessions and just make sure that the throttle stop is set and you're getting full throttle and the kart is running fine, rather than going out and halfway through the race you realise the kart's slow because you've only got half throttle. So check your throttle cable for full throttle and make sure that throttle stops working so you don't stretch the heck out of your throttle cable. Next up is your side pod bar mounts. Now you want to make sure that the bolts are in new condition and there's no damage to the in-hex here, or the shank here is not too worn out from vibrations. Also, I like to use this smaller M6 nylock. Make sure you get some brand new ones, especially for this event. And steer clear of your flare nut in this instance because it'll hang down closer to the circuit and grind your nylock off, and then the nut is more likely to come off. So new side pod bar bolts and the short M6 nylocks. So the next thing that you want to do is make sure that your exhaust system is properly secured. Now, saying that, the J exhaust, it's a bit of an older contraption, so you want to make sure that your exhaust flex has got some nice sharp edges on it. So give that a trim up or get a new exhaust flex, some new springs, and then wrap some high tensile cable around your springs. You can use tie wire as well, and some cable clamps. Hose clamps work good too, and all those things will stop the springs from vibrating and snapping over the course of the race. Throttle cable clamps work really well. These are brake safety cables. You can use these. These are pretty heavy duty. Otherwise, get yourself some just standard throttle cable. You can get the inners for about $5 and a couple of these, tie it around, do it up tight, and you're good to go. While you're at it and we're checking out our exhaust system, this is the Power Republic Racing J-Engine exhaust assembly. We use this here on the engine dyno here. And you can see here we've got a couple of hose clamps over the flex. That's to try to seal it up. And also too, we've got the springs over the springs, and this is what we're talking about to stop some of the vibration and the ends cracking. And you can also use a bit of tie wire between these 2 points to stop it from flexing. And while you're at it, you want to check that your header pipe is in good condition and there's no cracks around where it's been welded here, and also too around where you bolt it to the engine. Another one that you can do is get some hose clamps and hose clamp over the top of the bolts for your end cap. So you should take this off before the event, clean it out, make sure it's not all gummed up with carbon. You can wash it out with some caustic soda, or you can heat it up in the fireplace, whatever you want to do. And then put it all back together, Loctite on your screws, and then hose clamps over the top. And then obviously your safety cable here to your chassis. You want to try to make it as secure as you can so you don't have any failures during the race. Just as we say at Power Republic, safety never takes a holiday, and nothing is more important than your brake system. Now, we do have a regulation in karting. It's the brake safety cable. You want to make sure that this guy is going from your pedal back to your master cylinder as a safety in case the pedal actuating arm breaks, and you just double it back and hold it in there with a cable clamp, and then you are safe and ready to rock and roll. So while we're on the subject of brakes, you want to make sure you've got some fresh brake fluid and you've flushed and bled the entire system so that you don't have any premature failures during the race of your brake system. It makes it really difficult to be fast and safe without a proper working brake system. So make sure you've got yourself some, as a bare minimum, fresh fluid, and maybe a new set of brake pads as well. Number 9 is chains. Now, there is different types of chains, as you know. We've got the black, the gold, and the O-ring. I would use and recommend the O-ring chain. This one is going to do you for the entire race, no problems. It's an exceptional product. It's $100, so it's a little bit more expensive, but it will last the entire duration of your race. Otherwise, you're going to need to get either the gold chain or the black chain. These are $60 and these are $40 here in Australia. And you may need up to 2 chains for the event. So you want to make sure that you've used them at least for 1 or 2 practice sessions to get the initial stretch out of them, so that when you set them up for the race, they're the right tension for as long as you can. But I highly recommend the O-ring chain for these sorts of events. These ones last way longer. You need less lubrication. They get less hot. It's a definite winner. If I was going to do the enduro, which we may do, I'll be definitely putting an O-ring chain on my car. Next up, we're talking hubs and hub nuts. So we've got the different types of hub nuts here. This is the Tony Kart sort of copper coated locking cone lock. If they're not brand new, they can come loose with use. So I would either recommend using your InHex nut with some Loctite even for the event. This will stop the nuts from coming loose whilst racing. Otherwise, you could use a Nylock if it'll fit down inside your rim, but make sure they're new and brand new for the event, because you want to make sure that they don't come loose. So next up, we're talking fuel delivery systems. New fuel line and a new fuel filter is never going to be slow on race day. Chuck those on, especially for your endurance race. While you're at it, make sure you get a little bit of race tape and some big zip ties, and zip tie up your fuel tank to your chassis, and also put a bit of race tape around it. We want to make sure that if that bolt comes loose, you've got a little backup plan, because you don't want your fuel tank slopping around on your go-kart. Now, if you're liking these videos, please consider subscribing, turning on your notifications, giving us a thumbs up, and if you have any suggestions or questions, please leave it in the comments section below. Now, we've covered a lot of things in this video, and previously we have used a lot of these techniques in a lot of our other videos. So feel free to go through our library and check out all the little tips and tricks on keeping your kart in top racing condition. Some other points to note are racing numbers. You want to make sure you have very clear racing numbers for the officials, because they want to keep a good track of who is where. When in doubt, lube. Chain lube is going to be your friend. It's going to help your sprocket last the distance and make sure that the chain doesn't fly off if you're using the cheap chains. This stuff is incredible. Motul Racer chain lube, is sticky as. It's what I use and recommend. It's $27, so it's a little bit on the pricey side, but it's definitely worth the money if you ask me. Okay, something else that can catch you out is your beadlock screws. It's not necessarily the screw that catches you out. It's more so probably going to be the O-ring, the beadlock O-ring, because they perish with time. So take them all out and have a good inspection. If there's any that are cracked, you can flick those off and replace just the O-ring. Otherwise, you can get these little Tony Kart ones as a unit. It comes with the bolt. Oh, sorry, the knurled special nut with the O-ring. And also, if you don't want to move your O-rings, you can get the little shortened version. But just so I recommend, maybe if you do use those, to paint the tops red with some nail polish or something like that, so that you know that it's a shortened bolt and you don't need to remove them before you change your tyres. Okay, so now we're into our rear axle assembly, and we want to make sure that that doesn't come loose and cost us time on the track. If you're using a 30mm axle, these grub screws have a tendency to work loose over time. So make sure you use some Loctite on the grub screw and not filling the bearing journal up with Loctite as one person has done before. Makes axle removal almost impossible. So just a tiny bit of Loctite here to hold the grub screws into the bearings. And then also too, I like to use a little bit of an extra insurance policy on the 30mm axle by using a axle collar system similar to this one. I like the double split job, so you can put them on the axle even when the cart's installed. These ones you've got to remove the axle out of the bearings to get them on. And to do that, well, once you have those in place, you can use the grub screws and the axle collars to lock the axle in to make sure it doesn't move for the entire race. Another couple of little things that I'd like to mention is the airbox. You need to drill a little hole in your seat and the airbox and run a zip tie between them to make sure that the airbox doesn't flop around and slip off the end of the carburetor. And also too, while you're at it, make sure that you've got new batteries in your Alfano/Micron. Okay, the last thing that you want to do is you want to check your air filter. You need to pull it out of the airbox, wash it out with some hot soapy water and leave it to dry. And then spray a little bit of air filter oil on the outside, massage it in with your hands, and then it is good to go for the entire race meeting. So this Enduro event from the Mackay Kart Club in July 2019, it caters to all age groups. There's a cadet group that run a Vortex Mini Rock engine for 3 hours. Then there's the juniors that run the KT100J Yamaha engine, and they run for 3 hours. And then there's the same engine category for the seniors, and that's for 5 hours straight. So get yourselves an old J-Kart and get yourself to Mackay, because the event is fantastic. Everybody who went last year had a great time. They're pretty chilled up there in northern Queensland. Everybody has a great time up there, so please come along and enjoy the kart racing. So there you have it. That's approximately 10 tips, maybe 18, on how to prepare your kart to win enduro races. Shout out to Ben and Dion for getting in contact with us here at Power Product to make a video about the enduro. It's coming up in July, so get up there and go racing. All the parts that you saw in the video are available here at the House of Power, so get in contact with us via our website, www.powerproduct.com.au, or through Facebook, Instagram, and email. Thanks for watching. See you in the next video.